Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm a college counselor and have read applications for a small liberal arts college and 2 research universities. My twins are recent college graduates.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. This week in the news, Susan's going to join me to answer a question from a mom who wants to know, can you extrapolate from how personal or impersonal a college is when they recruit you, what the experience will be like when you actually get there? Susan, I love that question, and I'm moving it up to the top of the list. So we'll answer that on Thursday. Then we'll have the final part of Stephen Burd, senior writer and researcher for New America, discussing his research on how a number of colleges saddle low-income students with large Parent Plus loans. And then we've got a brand new interview, and it's kind of a double interview, really, so it'll play over the next 4 weeks. It's with Grace Robertson-Lloyd. And if that name's familiar to you, Grace Robertson-Lloyd joined Hillary Dickman and Kate Strickland to do our case studies. She's worked for Grinnell College for a decade. She's a Grinnell alum, and she's a regional in Denver, and she's also going to be attending the big event at St. Joe's High School in Lafayette on April 8th. Now, I say it's a double interview because I start out really going into the role of a regional. How's a regional different from a home-based admission officer? So we talk about that. That's what you're going to hear on Thursday. And then we get more really into doing a deep dive and a spotlight on Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa. Like, what makes it special? Strengths and struggles, Grinnell, right?
And now it's time for a question from one of our listeners.
Now,
All right, Susan, we are on a roll. This is, I think, 3, questions in a row that you and I have answered that are unique, a little bit outside the box, ones that we don't get asked, 5, 10, 20 times a year. So
parents are thinking hard this time of year.
Yeah. I'm never ceased to be amazed. And I know you're the same thing because we talk about it offline, how impressed we are by our listeners. Yeah. Let's play this and let's get your thoughts.
Hi, YCBK team. I had a question regarding making a decision which school to attend ultimately. I am the parent of a high school senior who did a lot of early action applications. So we already have a lot of acceptances to schools with some attractive offers for financial and merit aid. And now it's kind of the question, like, how do we make that decision? Obviously, we can do more visits. We can do research and all that. But what I was curious about is, to what degree should I read anything into the amount of engagement that the admissions counselor or the admissions team from any specific school demonstrates now? So I may have school A where there's really nothing happening. And when I reached out once with a question, I didn't get a response. And I may have school B where there's a constant engagement. And if I email the counselor, there is an immediate response to my question. However, the schools might be otherwise on paper be kind of similar. So I was curious to hear to what degree I can take admissions responsiveness and sort of being on top of things as indicative of the larger experience that my child would be having at that school, if that makes sense. Thank you so much.
So, this was interesting because I had a flashback back to early in my admissions career. So we're really talking about pre-internet to, it's like saying BC, right?
Sure.
It's like before internet.
Yeah. Really, it was a different world before the internet.
Oh my gosh. But a lot of
going to be like AI. We're going to have another one of those pre-AI, post-AI.
Pre-AI, that's right. But all of us who've been in the profession, for a long time, who made that transition from limit different kinds of technology to, it's something we think about a lot. But my dean at the college, the liberal arts college, where I worked in admissions full time, used to say those of us who represented the college to the public were the mirror of the college, and that we had to think of ourselves as mirroring the experience of how anybody on campus would treat this family, and especially would treat the students once they were enrolled. So we did that. That was very much the paradigm, that when we were in our recruiting season, that was what we were. We were letting them see in us how they would be treated by the faculty and whatever. I doubt that's how anybody explains it anymore. In fact, one of the reasons why I left admissions full time was that the focus changed from being a counselor to kids and their parents, who were looking at the school, to marketing and enrollment management. It was just the way that things happened. The internet came in, data analytics came in, and the people that were getting admissions jobs were no longer I'm in this because I love teenagers and I love helping families. I majored in public relations and marketing and communications. Most of us were psychology majors or liberal arts majors who didn't quite know what else to do right after college. And it was a great place to start if you loved your school. But anyway, that aside, I think this is a provocative question, because I don't think you can judge the book by its cover anymore. But when I was a parent, my kids are 5 years out of college. When did they graduate?
Kids were Joy's class, so that's 2021. 2021 grads.
Yeah. We were very sensitive to how admissions people treated our kids, not just how they treated us as college counselors, as colleagues, but how they treated our kids and how they continue to treat the kids that we work with. I think a lot of colleges shoot themselves in the foot by not being attentive. But my sense is this has become a different world of managing enormous numbers. The funnel is so broad now at the top that the attention to individual families and their questions, whether it's at a school visit, a campus visit, or an email, it's the luck of the draw if you feel you're being treated in a deeply caring or personal way. And I think it's interesting that this question is focusing on the after you've been admitted phase. So the college should be particularly attentive right now, because they want to yield these kids.
Sure. Right?
They've admitted them. The hard work of admission is over, and now it's all about yield.
Yep.
And I know, I had my admissions career early on, and then I was in a school for, over 25 years. And then when I went back into admissions, there was much less caring, much less personal follow-up. And it wasn't that they didn't want to enroll those kids. It's simply the paradigm had shifted. And I was
but you know what though, Susan?
What?
I'm seeing that pendulum swinging back.
Really?
And yes. And it's kind of by necessity, right? We talk a lot, about enrollment slide, birth dearth, war against college, but it's really real. And I'm going to share some data on this. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I've been preparing to share and do a whole overview on this. But when you look at it, when you see the drop off in births, and then you see the drop off again that's projected, because it happened during great financial crisis in 07-09, but then it happened again during the COVID years. So schools can literally look out and they see what's coming in 2038, 2040, coupled with the war on college and the high cost of college and Gen Z, different, the younger generation questioning the value. they're just forced to have to up their game with their creativity and their personal attention, or it's kind of like innovate, show individual attention, or die. Of course, there's always that group of schools that doesn't need to do that. So some of it depends on what group we're talking about here. Are we talking about the group that's, Texas and Michigan that just hit 100,000 apps? Are we talking about that? Or are we talking about most colleges? That's not where the majority of colleges are.
Nope, that's right.
They're, a high percentage of them are very worried they're going to be able to meet their class, and if they do meet their class, to what degree do they need to either really lower their standards or give so much more merit aid that they're going to decrease their net tuition revenue? Like with a lot of that, I'm seeing a lot of innovation. And now some of that innovation is ways on trying to predict yield and trying to do things or trying to get secure commitments and things like that. But upping of individual attention is definitely it. Like, I don't know if you noticed this, but so many more schools now trying to do interviews, not interviews after applications are submitted, but interviews with juniors as a way of moving them along the admissions funnel. Like, yeah, the women's colleges have done that kind of thing for years, right? Because they had to. Let's meet in a Starbucks for a half an hour. But boy, you're seeing that trickle into more and more and more schools. So
that's very interesting to look at it that way. I think you're absolutely right.
This is a great question. It's nuanced, right? Like on one side, I can say you go and you get an incredible tour guide and the family comes back and raves. Well, you might have just got the one tour guide. Maybe if you had a different tour guide, you would have had a different experience, willy-nilly. But for the most part, though, I would say that most of the time, I do think it's a good indication. Like if you're feeling TLC and you're feeling personalized individual attention, once again, I'm just saying the majority of times it's case by case. A lot of times that's going to be reflective of a culture of a school.
Exactly.
That's the best I can do, because you could have a school that just hired unbelievable people and just decided to go super high touch, or the consultant that they're working with is like, you got to throw tons of, but most of the time I think it is an indication of school culture. And I put it this way. I would not ignore that. Let's put ourselves in the position of somebody like this mom who's looking at some choices.
That's right.
I would absolutely not ignore that. If I'm feeling coldness from one school and warmth in this school, feels like they know my kid, and I feel like my kid is going to go there and get love. I just came back from Lynn, and this got that culture, and in fact, had a meeting with somebody in their entrepreneurship center, a student, and this was not a sign. It was like just talked to a student, and she described Lynn in 2 words: a loving family.
Wow.
But that's what you pick up when you're there. That's the culture. And so someone's going to feel this from that school because that's who their culture is. So I would just say,
it's kind of an accumulative effect.
Correct. It's everything, because you're probably also visiting, and you're going to get impressions based on visits and all of that. So this is some of the stuff Peter Pitts was talking about with the advantage of the small school, that we can really get in there and care, and we can do all this. I don't turn this into a small school, big school thing, because
that's what you're paying for.
Correct.
In a way, it's like, if people aren't paying attention to me at this level, now it may be that, this mom hit one overwhelmed admission counselor.
Correct.
Who didn't get back to her. A lot of times student workers are screening emails going to the admissions staff.
Yeah,
I know at Boston University, you can email your admission counselor, but it's actually going into a student worker pool of questions. And there's a triage there for what they can answer. And I think sometimes the emails you get are over the admission counselor's names, but they're written by a student worker, which maybe can be fine. But,
one thing I wanted to say, Susan, so we're now talking about making a decision, and this is a big decision. It's not only a big financial decision, it's a big life decision. For 4 years, this is the environment your student's going to be in, and who they're going to be around.
Huge.
And one thing that I would say to families is you should not be afraid to make some requests.
Right.
Like if you want to talk to a professor, or you want to sit in a class, or you want to talk to a few students, I mean, really anything. You could go from career centers to academic supports to, disabilities. I mean, what multicultural affairs, like whatever is important to you, you should feel free to, not in an aggressive, obnoxious way, but, some things that are going to, be really important to me. And I recommend this be student initiated, not parent, and see how schools respond to those requests.
Absolutely.
See if you feel treated like a number, or if you feel like, do they honor your request? What's the communication like? I think those things are important.
I agree.
I do. And I think, so while it's possible a school could hire incredibly savvy people and be working with some consulting firm that says you need to do this, and the other, I would trust your instincts. If you're feeling warmth and individual, my student, this school knows me and is making me feel like more than just a number, I would absolutely value that as one of the things if I was making a decision. That's probably the best way I can answer it. And what else do you want to add?
I agree entirely, with that. And, maybe because of the pressures, the enrollment pressures, things are, going kind of full circle, colleges, even ones that are fat and happy with their applicant pool that are now hitting $100,000 a year. No one's going to be immune from a lot of this. And
yeah, and that's important, because even the more selective ones, they still don't want to see their yield go down. Once again, listeners, yield's the percentage of people that say yes to the offer.
That's right.
And like I like to explain to people, if you're one of those very selective schools, all the people that you answer to are not going to be impressed with you being able to say we're full. They're going to be looking at a whole series of other type of metrics.
That's right.
To determine whether they think you did a good job. So, a case in point, look at what Yale did once both the affirmative action decision came out, as well as their movement to go back to testing. They started implementing specific programs they'd never done before that are very time intensive, very costly to the institution, but they felt those were the things that they needed to do in order to yield the kids that they wanted to yield. So it really does span all spectrums of selectivity. But there's people that when you're fighting for survival, you might tend to do a little more.
Of course. Well,
yeah.
And I would say to this mom, don't let admissions at this point in the process, don't let admissions thwart you. Meaning, go to the, like you just said, Mark, go to the people that your child is actually going to be interacting with consistently in their daily experience. Admissions has served their purpose. And, if you want to talk to somebody in, career planning or disability services, don't go through admissions. Just go right to that website, get on the phone. And I agree, the more connecting that the student can do, maybe do it as a team if you have a student who's a little uncertain. But again, this is adulting, and this is going to be the student's world very, very, very shortly. And let them really move in. Colleges, will be very responsive to when they have somebody on the line saying, I'm a admitted student. I'm coming next week. Can I meet with, ...
Yeah.
But don't let admissions thwart you at this point. They have a job to do, and they've done it.
Yeah. And it makes sense to really brainstorm, like, who would I need to see to make a decision? Because there could be millions of different, not millions is a lot, but there could be dozens of different people. Like, somebody might want to meet with residential life. Somebody might want to meet with somebody in food services to see how they're going to handle their kids' peanut allergy.
Excellent.
Like there's just so many different people. And so take ownership over the process in that. And one of the nice things about just reaching out directly and bypassing admissions, it does kind of give you a chance to see how things are handled. Sometimes admissions have their superstar liaison and different people that's agreed to be the contact person, and they're very perky and they're great. Sometimes just going in on your own like that is kind of a good way to see, how the response or lack of response. Because students will say that to me all the time. This school got right back to me. This other school, they never return any of my emails. take note. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Susan.
You're welcome.
Thanks, listener. Friends, you now have 7 books you can pick from if we play your SpeakPipe question or comment or tip on the air. We have our 4 Princeton review books, The Best 390 Colleges, College Admissions 101, Essays That Kick Apps, and Princeton Digital SAT Prep. Our 3 new editions are The Calm College Method by Lisa Ruff and Linda Depker, paperback or Kindle, Peter Pitt's Small College Magic Kindle version, and College Unmazed has a book, Your Guide to Design and Document Your Home School by Holly Ramsey and Michelle Everett, paperback edition. Our authors have generously agreed to cover the shipping and handling. Just send your name and full address, the book that you want, and the episode number where we aired your SpeakPipe question or tip. Please send that to yourcollegeboundkid@gmail.com, and we'll forward your request to the authors. Okay, friends, let's transition to the final part of my interview with Stephen Burd of New America.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Okay, friends, all good things must come to an end. We've reached the final part 3 of 3 of my interview with Stephen Burd at New America. And in part 3, Stephen talks about what he would change if he was in charge. And Stephen clearly has thought about this because he has a lot to say. Stephen talks about the role of enrollment management and how it's changed over the years in not so good ways. Stephen talks more about the think tank that he works for, New America. What does New America do? Listen and enjoy. I don't hear very many people talk about the priority of increased social mobility at the core of the school like you once used to hear. I have a theory that the research you've done needs to lead to you coming to Congress and speaking to Congress. Because I feel like without accountability, it won't happen. Like you even mentioned it, right? Wall Street Journal, in effect, shamed Baylor, but they called them out by name. But others that just got mentioned in the article didn't make the drastic changes Baylor made. And there's been some talk about this, right? There's been some talk about colleges having to be accountable if people default.
Right.
You mentioned that some changes in capping Parent Plus loans, but it's still a lot. It's like 60,000 or something, like the amount that.
So Congress capped plus loans, so you can't take out the full cost of attendance, but you can take out, I think it's up to $65,000 a year for each child.
Yeah, that's outrageous amount for someone that makes half that.
I'm wrong. It's $20,000 a year for each student. It's $65,000 in aggregate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's what I meant. 65 still over 4 years. If you make $30,000 a year, you can't pay $60,000, $5,000 back. And then that's the origination fee and then the interest. It's going to be more. So I think that Congress has to come in and preclude schools from being able to package Parent Plus loans to low-income students. Now, I do want to shout out, there are schools that do not package with Parent Plus loans. And there's some that feel very principled about it and they feel it's wrong and they don't do it.
And I want to mention also that not all 41 of the schools does package plus loans. So that's one of, you asked what I'm hearing. And so far, I think the school that I've heard the most from is Marquette. And they very much said we do not package plus loans, but that does not, my definition of the steering really is whether you are leveraging the bulk to all of your aid and then leaving low-income families with no choice but to borrow.
But I'll tell you, to me, the most frequent violators are those that package. Because
oh, no, I agree.
The way people learn about all this financial stuff is they get an award.
Right. No. I agree. I'm just saying you don't have to have package to be on the list. That's there.
Yeah,
but
right. No, I hear that.
But we should be. We need to eliminate that as a possibility. And I know that there's been legislation in Congress to do that. But I think right now the college groups like ACE have gotten to the lawmakers, and they're actually talking about doing financial aid award letter reform that would still allow colleges to package plus loans, which would be ridiculous. So that's something that we are very vocal about. And I will say, I can't really say too much, but we have gotten some interest from my report from some members of Congress.
I would think you would.
Yeah, we have heard, and we're going to be talking to some people. So
I was going to ask you, because I'd be shocked if your report didn't. There are people that care about this. I remember Lamar Alexander, when he was in Tennessee, he used to really be seriously interested in issues of education, and others as well. I won't mention all the names of different people, but this is the kind of thing that Congress could take up. And this may not be the best motive, but there's a little bit of a socket to the colleges mentality out there that could lead to people wanting to go after the colleges, and their motive may not always be the best. But in this case, if it leads to cracking down on this practice, maybe it's one of those things where,
you make
the end justifies the means.
Strange bedfellows.
Strange bedfellows, yes. You know what I mean? Like, you can see people saying, oh, yeah, here's a way we can sock it to those colleges. And I can see how, honestly, I can see people on both sides of the political spectrum agreeing on this is a good thing to do, maybe for different reasons.
Uh-huh.
But it could be enough to generate change. So get ready to go before Congress and present your research there.
I have been on a local Fox News channel, so I don't know if they count or if it's just the national Fox News.
You guys just New America just needs to have a bunch of lobbyists that
right
that work Capitol K Street.
We do not have a bunch of lobbyists. We have some people who have good relations, but I would say we have lobbyists. So
what are your thoughts on, like, Stephen's in charge? He gets to write the rules. What would you change to curtail these practices?
Actually, I'll just mention first off, that's my next report. Is I'm going to be coming out with a list of where we would like to see the system go, and I think we really do need to rein in the enrollment management consulting industry. I'm not talking about the campus enrollment managers, but I would like policymakers to see the role that these outside companies have, but then looking at ways to make college more affordable, accessible, and prevent the kind of activities that we have been talking about here. But in terms of plus loans, there needs to be an ability to repay calculation made when it can't be as you said, it's way too easy for low-income family to just take on a very, very large loan. And so there has to be an ability to repay measure. Colleges need to be on the hook. There needs to be some sort of accountability if large numbers default on the loans. So definitely that there has to be we have to outright forbid colleges from being able to package plus loans, as you said, as well. And there's a bunch of financial aid award letter reform that's needed.
I've been talking about that forever. Shopping sheet, standardizing the form.
Yeah, for a long time. But the colleges are incredibly resistant. And I think part of that is, a big part of that is enrollment management. I mean, it's because you're trying to, if your college is a business and you're trying to beat your competitors, then you have your trade secrets, the way that you do things, and you want to be able to do the award letter that you want. So that's a start, at least, of what I'd like to see.
Do you see differences within enrollment management? Like, I've heard a lot of people who I have a lot of respect for who will tell me, like, human capital, they're like really good people over there.
Oh yeah, no, and Brian Zucker. I haven't talked to him in years. I used to talk to him when I was at the Chronicle. They definitely are a better player. And one of the interesting things from I learned, while working on the book I wrote about enrollment management, or book that I edited, was which we call Lifting the Veil on Enrollment Management, by the way, was that, a lot of the original people who were involved in enrollment management, such as Don Hostler, who came on with me to your podcast, this wasn't the direction that they wanted enrollment management to go in. And they can be quite critical where it's landed. I think a big part was that once U.S. News came on the scene, it sort of defined the criteria that colleges would be judged by. It kind of wrote the blueprint. And all of these college consultants then came out and were like, okay, we can help you. We can help you get up these ranks. It gave them something. It gave them something to a roadmap for how they could help a college get up these rankings. It's there are definitely monetary advantages to that. So I do think that I think the original view, a lot of the people who originally were involved in enrollment management definitely saw a need for more data, more comparison, figuring out ways to make colleges more efficient, do a better job. The best part of enrollment management was more on the retention side, and how you can work to help retain particularly low income and minority students. And so I think that I don't mean to have a totally broad brush on it. But I think that the direction it's taken is not good for society.
Stephen, in our remaining time, talk to our listeners about New America, what you guys do, because you guys are kind of at the forefront of some breathtaking research. I remember, I don't know, was it 7-8 years ago, you partnered with You Aspire and really took a look at hundreds of aid awards and showed how colleges are using misleading terms and masquerading loans as grants and very confusing terminology. And it was a fascinating report that the two of your organizations put out together. Talk about what you guys do, and what, if people were to go to the website, what some of the things that they could find over there.
So, yeah, no, we did. That report was a major undertaking, and, one I was really proud of, because we actually You Aspire had the financial aid award letters, so we could actually go through them, which I would love to figure out ways we could keep doing that kind of work.
It's another great organization we've had on the podcast before.
Yeah, no, but we have an amazing higher ed team. It's grown over time. We look at a variety of issues around student loans, student aid, enrollment management, a bunch of the stuff about financial aid award letters, plus loans, keeping colleges accountable. Holding colleges accountable has been a very big priority for us. So while we are generally a progressive think tank, we are definitely a think tank that's been fairly critical of higher education in terms of keeping higher education accessible, affordable, and equitable. And we try to keep their feet to the fire in that. On the other hand, we don't support the kind of full war on higher ed that the Trump administration has waged. We definitely believe the reason why we were so passionate about trying to make sure higher education is available for everyone is because we very much passionately believe in the importance of higher education and what role it plays in people's lives. We've all been, touched by it. So that informs all of our work.
And Stephen, if people want to access New America's think tank research, do they have to pay a subscription? Is it expensive? Do you want to talk about that? No,
it's all free. It's on the website. You can just come to the New America website, newamerica.org. Or you can contact me at Burd, BURD, at newamerica.org. and I can help you find what you're looking for as well.
And listeners, reach out to Stephen. He wouldn't throw his email out there, bird@newamerica.org if he wasn't serious. So I know the kind of listeners that we have. They're sponges for knowledge. They eat this stuff up.
And I love to talk to people. I mean, I love to hear, when you're stuck in an office, and you don't, or at home, and you're not talking to people, you're not learning. So definitely love to hear from people. And I'm a reporter by nature, so that's been my.
So what are some other things you have up on the newamerica.org site that you think might be of interest to people interested in higher ed?
Oh, interesting. Let's see, what else have we put up lately? I've been so focused on my own work.
You really have for like a few years on this.
Yeah, it's been. There was actually a really great report that came out last year about cosmetology schools, and how much debt they were putting families into, and just how unregulated they are. That a bunch of my colleagues wrote. That's good. My boss is Kevin Carey, who is a great writer, and he's written a lot of impassioned pieces lately responding to what the Trump administration's been doing.
And how many, we never even said your title. What's your title and role, and how many people kind of do what you do over there?
I think we've got, I think we've got about a dozen altogether, but I may be wrong. But yeah. And I am a senior writer and editor with the education policy program there.
And you're in DC. Is everybody else spread throughout the country?
Mainly we're all in DC. We have a couple of people who are in different places, but mainly we're.
Yeah, then you definitely need to be able to work the DC connections to get a form.
Yeah, no, we've always been very federally focused, but we're trying to get more state focused as well. So.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great as usual. You survived the hot seat the first time, so you're exempt from that.
Oh, the hot seat. The last time I had Don Hostler to lean on. So this time I got to do it on my own.
Yeah, Don is the VP high level position at Indiana University.
Well, he was. He's retired. He's retired now.
Right, but he brought his critique of enrollment management, like you said, and how it's gone in a direction different than he had wanted to see it go. And that's, if you guys might want to go back and listen to that interview in the archives.
He's fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people have heard him.
I think it's the number here. I'll insert it here for our listeners, what interview number it is. You can just put the interview number in Google and it pops right up. Friends, after this recording, I did look it up, and Stephen's first interview is interview 194, not episode 194, interview 194. Check it out. So did we cover anything? Is there anything we didn't say that you wanted to share?
I think we got everything. I know I can get long-winded, so I don't ever know when I'm just getting off.
No, you were good.
Okay, good.
And if you weren't, I would fix it on the editing table.
Yeah, definitely fix anything and everything on editing. I am not. I would rather sound good than.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. It's appreciated. Your voice needs to be amplified.
And hopefully I won't run into you at a conference again.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to you off air. I have some people that I'd like to see you meet with. I think that could help amplify this work. So we'll talk offline. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Stephen. Okay, friends, time for a brand new interview. It's with Grace Robertson-Lloyd. Let's transition to hear that interview.
And now it's time for our College Spotlight of the Week.
Friends, Grace gives her backstory, including her time as a student at Grinnell. Grace talks about her first 10 years working for Grinnell, both in Iowa, D.C., and in Grinnell, Iowa. Grace explains how the role of regional is similar and different to the role of the home-based admission officer, the one who lives close to home. Grace explains the trade-offs of not being able to do some things that the home-based AO does, but she has additional responsibilities that fill her time, and she tells us what those are. Grace tells us what her territory is. Grace talks about the pros and cons of being a regional that lives in the city she's recruiting from. And then Grace answers an important question. how can a student know if there's a regional in their area? And most importantly, how can they take best advantage of a regional who lives in their area? This is only a one-parter, friends. Listen and enjoy. Friends, I'm here with Grace Robertson-Lloyd from Grinnell College, but she's a regional in Denver. Welcome to the Your College Bound Kid podcast, Grace.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
So, friends, if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because Grace was one of three counselors, along with Kate Strickland and Hillary Dickman, who participated in the case studies. And so you might have even seen Grace on video, and many of you followed through with that. And you may remember I said at the time, that Grace is a sharp cookie. I want her coming back. I was very impressed with you, Grace, your answers. You have a level of depth. So thank you. I know you're extremely busy.
No, I really appreciate it. It was a great session to do the case studies. And I actually ran into some people on the road when I was traveling who said, wait, I recognize your name. Yes, you were on YCBK. And I was like,
there you go. We love that.
So
we love that. Well, I'm hoping that you don't jinx me. So you don't know this, but I was at Grinnell College in summer 2023. And the day before, I had done Northwestern in Chicago. And I had something like 14,000 steps. And I got on Grinnell's College and I couldn't hardly put any weight on my leg at all. I don't know what happened. So it turned out I had to get like arthroscopic knee surgery. It's the weirdest thing in the world. Like one moment you're walking perfectly, and then the next moment you can't put any weight on your leg. But I still can picture your beautiful campus.
I'm glad it was a beautiful campus. I'm sorry you got injured.
One other story. My oldest daughter, who's 29, she ended up graduating from Davidson, but she did do a Grinnell fly-in. So she did a fly-in to Grinnell back in 2013. So that's my other cool Grinnell story. But before we get into Grinnell, we're going to start out talking about life as a regional. And before we even get into that, tell us your background.
Yeah. So, again, so great to be here. My name is Grace Robertson-Lloyd. I work for Grinnell College as an associate director, and I also am the coordinator of virtual recruitment, which we'll get more into soon. But basically anything virtual, any type of information session program that is happening online or on Zoom, I'm the person who managed it, coordinated it, built it, etc. I actually started as a student at Grinnell. I graduated in 2016, loved my experience so much. And for me, it was just natural to work there after being an intern over the summer, being a tour guide for a couple of years, and just loving the experience. And it just, was a seamless transition into the position of an admission counselor, and starting on the domestic side, starting fully in person. Then as the world changed, the pandemic hit, I went virtual due to the pandemic, and then I stayed virtual. I was able to get approved to go fully virtual, live with my now husband in Denver, Colorado, which is where I'm tuning in from right now from our home. And it was one of the best things because I got the best of both worlds, where I got to represent an institution and currently represent an institution that I really believe in and do the things that I love for this school, while also being able to be in a place that's accessible and makes sense for my husband's job. And he's a lawyer. And so we were trying to find the best of both worlds, and we did. And so very grateful to Grinnell for that. Throughout that whole time, it's just been a whirlwind of trying to navigate this new position, because it's something that Grinnell has not really done before. And so sort of starting the train of remote work and how that might look for the college has been a really exciting piece of my legacy, so to speak, at Grinnell as well.
So, Grace, a few questions. What's your hometown? Were you coming from Iowa to go to Grinnell or some other place?
Good question. I'm actually from New Jersey. So I'm from Allentown, New Jersey. I went to the Petty School.
Oh, I know Petty.
Yeah, you know Petty.
Very well. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad still works there. And so it was an amazing experience to go there. I'm very familiar with the East Coast, but going to Grinnell was definitely the best choice and the perfect choice for me, and has set me on a whole different trajectory than I might have been if I had gone to a different institution. And just very grateful to have counselors that put it on my radar in the first place. So.
Yeah, and I'll get a little bit more into your decision to go to Grinnell later when we get more into the Grinnell portion. But so you're regional, you're in the Denver market. Did you start out as a home-based, Grinnell College counselor? It sounded like that's what I heard, and then the opportunity to come to Denver emerged, or did I misread that?
No, that's perfectly correct. So I actually lived and worked in Grinnell after graduating for about 5 years, and transitioned around, I think it was 2021 into early 2022 to live in Denver, and have been in Denver, Colorado since then. And though I did live in DC for a year, so just to throw that in the mix too. But that's also the nice thing about the flexibility of a remote position, is it does allow for some of that sort of transitional time between different cities, depending on what's going on in your life. And that was because my husband got a job in Washington, D.C. But yes, so 5 years in Grinnell and the rest in Denver, 1 year in D.C.
Nice. So if any of our listeners are not familiar with the regional admission officer role and how it's different than the home-based, meaning like located in Grinnell, why don't you sort of describe, the role and similarities and differences?
Yeah. So a lot of the work is the same. I still answer emails, I still travel, I still do all of the recruitment pieces, but I don't do the on-campus information sessions because I'm not there. I don't have to be a part of all of the programs that we host on campus because I'm not there. So I try to be there when I can if it works with my schedule, but it's not a requirement. The trade-off is that, or not trade-off because I like the virtual side, but I do take on a lot more of the virtual work. So giving virtual information sessions, which are about 30 minutes or so once a week. I share that with a team of other people who support me in the virtual side. I coordinate all the virtual programming. And then I also do a lot of travel. So away from the virtual side, but because I'm based at in an area with a major airport, I do international admission, which is a major part of my job, and travel the world for Grinnell, and majority going to Asia, the Middle East, and that's like my main territories. But then also being able to travel very accessibly to different parts of the United States. It's very easy to go from Denver to New York City, which is one of my territories, or of course, traveling around Colorado and the mountain states, going to California, very accessible. And so a lot of my work has changed in that it's more virtual and it's more travel, and it's less kind of on the ground work within the actual Office of Admission on campus, which, has its pros and cons.
Yeah. So what exactly are your territories? I heard quite a few there.
Yeah. So I do international. I primarily work with students who are applying from China and India, and then I cover Southeast Asia, East Asia, and then I cover the Middle East and Africa, and travel to all of those locations for Grinnell. I also, on the domestic side, have New York City, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, because I am from the East Coast. And then I also have Colorado. And I assist with other territories as needed, such as California, because again, it is right there and very accessible to get to. So while California is not one of my actually assigned territories, it is a place that I've gone to a few times on behalf of Grinnell since I've been located in Denver.
Let's talk about the pros and cons of being a regional, first from the college's standpoint. What do you see if you put your college, administrator hat on? What do you see as the pros and cons?
Yeah, I mean, I think a definite pro is the fact that there is someone who is physically accessible to a lot of different events that otherwise would not be possible to be attended by a staff member from the Office of Admission. And I mean, I can just drive 20 minutes to that really great college fair that we wish we could be at. I can actually be there for Grinnell. And so it's I think, a really great experience for Grinnell to have someone. We have me, and now since I have been a remote employee, we've also hired someone in Texas, and it's the same thing. I think the benefits definitely are showing through. You see the app numbers, the enrollment numbers, the numbers of fairs that we attend, and the people that we're reaching. All of that has increased since being a remote employee for the territories that I represent. So that's definitely a great pro. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, this won't surprise you, but I interviewed Fabrizio, who's over the admission office at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the topic was how they went from 17,000 apps to 60,000 in 7 years. And the number one thing he credited, to this growth was their use of regionals, of which they have like 35 spread throughout. And, he talked a lot about, especially once you get to year 3, you start to really see the fruit of your labor. So, you're just attesting to the same thing, just more in a liberal arts college rather than a large flagship.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that there are so many benefits to having people, again, on the ground in a different area than just on the college, because especially with an institution like Grinnell, which is a beautiful place, as you mentioned yourself, but it's not the easiest to get to. And so finding ways to bring Grinnell to the students and the families that are interested in trying to learn more, that's a big piece of what my work is, and being able to represent Grinnell at such a wide variety. I mean, literally last night I was at a college fair and case study program that I know I wouldn't have probably been able to go to normally if I had been based in Grinnell, Iowa, because it would have required a flight, a hotel, all these different things. So just the accessibility of representation is wonderful. I would say if you were going to ask about the cons, right? There are cons too. And I always want to, I think it's good to play to both sides and understand both sides. It's hard because we do still want people who are represented on campus and able to do the in-person information sessions and able to manage the day-to-day tasks that happen on campus. And especially for a school like Grinnell that is so focused on the idea of community, togetherness, and really bringing people from all different, perspectives and backgrounds and identities to live and learn together. You want to represent that also within the Office of Admission, because we're the first step that a lot of students take when it comes to getting to know what Grinnell is about. And so the more people, the better, who can actually share that understanding and kind of the ethos of what Grinnell is all about. And so by having fewer people in the actual town of Grinnell, it can restrict some of that accessibility of just making sure we have people who can always do those info sessions, and also the diversity of who's offering those information sessions as well. So that I would say is a con. I would say there is a little bit of a difference. I feel like I knew my office so well before going remote, and so I didn't feel ostracized or isolated in the way that might happen for some people who start off in a remote position and don't have the luxury of knowing people before they go remote. I knew people before I went remote, so I didn't feel uncomfortable when I made that transition, but it is different to not, be able to have cooler talks or, get coffee together, go to lunch together, have a happy hour, whatever it might be. That is a different experience and something I miss a lot, honestly, as a remote worker. It's still, there's a sense of togetherness, but it's also a little bit lonely. And that's one thing that's, I would say, is a con on both the college side and also on the personal side.
So let's talk about some of the things you do. So obviously you as you mentioned, you're doing case studies, you're making fairs you wouldn't be able to make. Are you doing like more college nights where, for local high schools where they have like a speaker come in and do their junior program, and interviews on the road, or meeting people at Starbucks? Are those parts of the kinds of things that you're doing in the metro area?
All of the above. The Starbucks interviews, that's definitely, those are a big part of my position. doing a lot more outreach with high schools, doing more high school visits than I normally would do in a territory, because you only have a week in a place. I have my whole life in a place in Denver, Colorado. And so I can take a lot more time visiting high schools that maybe we normally would not be able to visit due to timing constraints. I would say especially being a speaker has been really wonderful, and also working with younger students. I feel like a lot of times when I travel to New York City, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I'm often working with seniors who are applying or juniors who are hoping to apply in the next year. Next week, I literally have a presentation with 8th to 10th graders. And I'm very excited for that, because I think starting at the sort of bottom of the funnel of understanding about college admission is a really wonderful place to start. And it's better to start early and to be a part of that process, even if it's not ultra specific to Grinnell, but more general. I think that's a great public service. It feels like a professional courtesy that I'm able to do. And because I'm based here, I'm able to do it much more easily than I would be otherwise. So,
I'll tell you some of just so you know, I'm very bullish on use of regionals, and it's a bit of a head scratcher to me that colleges don't use them more than they do. But some of the pushback I've had when I've brought this up to, VP of Enrollment, Dean Directors of Admissions, is a couple. One is managing the state taxes and all the complexities can really be a Herculean task if you've got people spread out all over and all these different locations. And then some other laws in the states require some things that you have to do that end up, really being really expensive. I've heard that. I've also heard that maybe if you have maybe more of a hands-on or more of a micromanager, they really struggle with like, hey, what's this person doing? And then occasionally there are people that take advantage of that freedom. Obviously, that's, it doesn't have to be that way. But those are some of the things that I sometimes hear. Do any of those things make sense? Do you have any thoughts on either of them?
I have thoughts on all of them. The tax piece, I will just comment. One of the most difficult points was the year when I was in DC and I had to pay taxes in Washington, DC, technically Virginia, as well as in Iowa, as well as in Colorado, because we had moved between them.
That doesn't sound fun.
That was not a fun time. So I do think that there are some complications for sure when it comes to that piece. And I think a lot of it is just being transparent with the employees about how difficult it'll be, and making sure that on the behalf of the employer that, they will understand. And so I think a lot of it is just being transparent about what those challenges are going to be. On the piece about micromanagement, I'm in an interesting space because I worked at Grinnell for 5 years, and I feel, without trying to pat myself on the back, I feel very proud of the work that I did over the 5 years that I was in person. And I feel very proud of the 5 years that I've worked remote. I think I proved myself as someone who is trustworthy in the 5 years that I worked in person. And that's why it hasn't been an issue. I think there's just a level of understanding of my work ethic, but that is something that I'm in a good space to be in, right? Because I had that experience. It wouldn't be the same maybe if I was at a completely new school where no one knew how I worked and it was, I was suddenly remote. And so I do think that can be definitely a challenge for deans and directors who are trying to consider maybe a new position for a remote worker with someone that they don't know, and how they are able to manage their time. So again, I have the luxury of being in the position I'm in part because I advocated for myself and then showed that I can handle it and I'm trustworthy.
Yeah, that was evident as soon as you said, hey, it's kind of a new thing. Grinnell doesn't do a lot of it. I was listening. I'm like, okay, you proved yourself in your 5 years, so they trusted you. And they clearly think it's working because you said now they've added a Texas position, which they wouldn't do if they didn't think it was working, right? So all good. So for a family that's out there and they're kind of hearing, wow, if there's a regional, maybe I can, maybe have a little bit more of a personal connection with them. How can a student find out if some of the schools they're interested in have a regional? And is there anything you recommend a student does if they find out, oh, this is great, one of the colleges I'm interested in has a regional that's not too far away?
Yeah, great question. I think definitely utilizing the websites. Most of us, in terms of college admission, will have a Meet the Staff page on our website that will list where people are located. If you dig usually a little deeper, so not just to the name and email, but click a little deeper and it'll say, this person is the regional for X location. I would also say keep an eye out for events that are happening in your area. And so if there is a college fair and you go to it and there's a school that you're interested in and you talk to the rep, ask where they're based, because they might not always come out and say, I'm actually based right here, or I'm based one state over, but they might be. And especially in Colorado, it's a really wonderful group. The ROAR is what they call themselves. So it's Regional Officers of Admission of the Rockies. Mouthful. But it is a wonderful organization and a large organization of all regional people who represent universities and colleges across the United States and some international institutions that all have regionals based in either Colorado or neighboring mountain states. And so there are some of these organizations that I think as a family, you can have access to. You can find their website. And if you can't find it on the school's website, you can often find it through the broader organization's website. Or again, showing up at a college fair and just asking, do you have a regional representative? I'd love for my student to connect with that person if they can.
So, Grace, this was great. I think you've answered all the main questions on being a regional. Friends, on Monday's episode, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth about some of the changes that are happening within the state of Florida. And I'm going to share a story from the counseling room that happened this week with the family from Northern Virginia. And it just reminded me of something I've been wanting to talk about with you guys for a while. And then I'm going to share something which I'm getting a lot of requests about. Which jobs is AI going to displace? And then we'll have part 3 or 4. I interview with student athletic advisors. You'll hear from Katie, and you'll hear from Amy, you'll hear from Joe, you'll hear from Reed. And I'll be honest, part 3 of 4 is my favorite part of all the 4 parts. So you definitely do not want to miss this. Friends, it's decision time. And you know what that means? I am trying to indelibly emblazon, sear something on your minds. And what is that thing? It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's what you do when you get there, and it's what you do when you get out of there. That is what is going to determine your career success or lack of success. See you on Monday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Escabel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stalionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.